everybody, Dante again from Opus with another installment of Dante's information download. And I'm very excited about this presentation today that I'm doing with my good friend Jalen. This is Scuddlr, right? And so what Scuddlr is, it is an online prospecting tool for LinkedIn. Anybody who's doing business to business sales could really love and leverage this tool. It's very, very important. There's a huge market on LinkedIn if you're doing business to business, and if you're just even looking to network or get on podcasts or whatever you're looking to do to grow your business. It is an effective tool and it is great. I'm going to step back and hand it over to my good friend Jalen so he can showcase Scuddlr and what it does, and we'll answer a couple questions along the way. All right, go ahead for us, Jalen. Thank you so much.
Awesome. So Dante covered a lot of the key statistics from LinkedIn and why it's super important that we are on the platform and that we're networking and we are engaging with other folks that are in the realm of the LinkedIn world. And doing so, we have Opus here, or Scuddlr, the platform that will allow us to automate all of this outreach to the prospects that we're looking to get in contact with. In addition to that, we're going to automate all of the follow-up process, as well as store some data on the back end for you to really capitalize on some of these prospects that we're bringing inbound for you. So pulled up in front of us currently right now is going to be the campaign tab. This is where we come in and we create all campaigns for our automated outreach to our prospects on LinkedIn. You'll notice that we have a list view of all the campaigns. Whenever we're creating a campaign, we have a couple different types that we can always select from. More on the simple side of things, this is going to be more for just that B2B outreach on LinkedIn. And then if you're jumping into some of the advanced features with our platform, we do have some email marketing, some enriched databases that you can touch into to kind of enrich your prospect data. And if you're getting into that advanced feature side of things, we're going to want to touch on smart campaigns. But anytime we're ready to start some outreach, we're going to start with building a simple campaign or a smart campaign. It's very simple. We're always going to name our campaign initially. Once we name our campaign, we're always going to dive straight over to uploading our lead list, aka the prospects that we're looking to reach out to on LinkedIn. So very unique here. There's a ton of different ways that we can touch and reach out to our prospects on LinkedIn. First off is just jumping into LinkedIn, building yourself an audience through the search bar. Once you're building your audience, you can easily upload a URL here. We can target up to 2,500 people at a time with that standard LinkedIn URL. Even individuals' content on LinkedIn, we can target who's engaging with that content, whether that be someone liking on their content or commenting their content. We can always target that engagement as well. You'll also notice that on LinkedIn, there are LinkedIn events. You can register for LinkedIn events, and then once you're registered for an event, you can also target all other event attendees, which is really nice. The really cool thing about event attendees is that we can start with just sending messages to these people. So we don't have to, use up our daily connection requests that we can send in a daily manner. We can instantly just start getting new touch points with prospects pretty much instantly by sending messages to their inbox directly inside of LinkedIn. The same kind of applies for groups. So groups, and once you join a group on LinkedIn, you also have full access to all the other group members, and you can instantly start firing messages off to those individuals. So again, new touch points on a daily basis without having to use up your connection request. And then I know a lot of people on LinkedIn that are super active. They may have Sales Navigator. So anytime you are using Sales Nav to compile some of your lead lists, we can also use those saved searches in Sales Nav and upload them directly right here. The last option here before we can upload a campaign or upload our lead list is going to be a CSV file. So I know that a lot of clients or individuals in general may have lead lists from the past that we can use to upload into the platform here, especially for the advanced features like email marketing. If you had CSV files with a bunch of emails, we can upload those emails directly into the platform here and run some email campaigns. But if you also have any data, let's say from like a Zoom info or an external third-party source where you have LinkedIn profile URLs, we can also upload the CSV file with those LinkedIn profile URLs to target those prospects as well.
Yeah, so I just want to touch on that just very briefly, right? So the really cool thing about this is going back to that 4 out of every 5 people are decision makers, right? So if you're using the post URL, maybe you're a public speaker or maybe you're a coach of some sort and you see another coach and you want to go after their type of prospects, right? Because they're highly focused on what you are doing. You can use that link and then start targeting the people on there. Same thing with the event. Hey, Jalen, I saw you're attending this new blockchain event that's coming up on the 30th. What's your involvement, right? You can start having these conversations before the actual event happens, right? And then continue that prospecting post the event, right? So you can do it smart. A couple of days leading up to it, day of the event, really looking forward to seeing you here. Maybe a couple of days after, hey, what did you think of the event, right? It could be yours, it could be a different event. Same thing with groups. you're looking at highly targeted people. Maybe you're in the fashion industry and you have like a fashion group. Maybe you're in the medical industry, etc. And then obviously people who use Navigator know exactly how that works. And then finally CSV file. If you're using some kind of database, you've got them already in your CRM, you've got some kind of lead list, you can load it up and hyper focus and hyper target your thing. So the thing about it is it's not a spray and pray, right? This is a very calculated and sniper type of sale. And that's why it is such a successful thing. When I started developing this, I ended up having to turn it off because I had too many leads, right? Wouldn't we all love to have that problem? Like I couldn't get to all the conversations that were happening and all the meetings that were getting booked for me while I was doing other stuff. So sorry, I just wanted to kind of dive in there because I think it's important to contextually have people understand exactly how they can leverage it in their actual individual business.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. So ton of different strategies that we can approach just depending on even the type of lead list that we're uploading, as Dante was just mentioning. So ton of different strategies to involve or implement there just depending on even the type of lead that you're uploading into a campaign. Once you've decided or once you uploaded your lead list though, from there we have a couple different options before we actually start building out the campaign. First off, we're going to decide if we're going to do social plus email, aka if we're going to do LinkedIn outreach plus email or just LinkedIn outreach in general, or if we're looking to only do email campaign. So we're going to decide initially which one we're looking to run with for this specific campaign. For this instance, I'm going to show you what social plus email looks like. Once we get through that portion, we have 4 toggles we can turn on if we'd like to. Some of them are a little confusing. Some of them are pretty straightforward. So premium only is going to target just the users on LinkedIn that pay for a premium subscription. This is very nice because typically anyone that pays for a subscription for any platform out there, they're a lot more active than someone who doesn't. The downfall here is that it will limit your lead list. So if you were to upload, let's say, a search URL with 1,000 prospects here, we could probably assume that not all 1,000 of those prospects are paying for premium on LinkedIn. So it's going to really minimize that list. The pro to that, though, again, is that they're going to probably be a lot more active than someone that doesn't pay for premium. Link tracking. So we are tracking when prospects are clicking on your links, whether that's in an email campaign or even in your LinkedIn messages. This kind of comes more into the smart campaign side of things because we have if-then variables, which I'll show you in just a bit, that allow our prospects to go down different paths depending on what they're doing inside of your campaign. And we can kind of decide some of those paths they're going down based off if they're clicking the links in your messaging. So if we go that route, we have to make sure we have link tracking turned on. The third one here is include prospects. So anytime you want to have a first degree campaign, aka reach out to the people that you are currently connected with on LinkedIn, it's always important to capitalize on your current network, not just new prospects that are out there. Anytime you're building those campaigns to reach out to your current network, we do have to toggle on include prospects. This toggle is just going to allow us to send messages to anyone that we've already had a conversation with before on LinkedIn. The last toggle here is move prospects. So to always make sure that we have prospects not ending up in 2 different campaigns and getting hit with 2 different points of outreach, we ensure that once a prospect is enrolled into a campaign, they forever exist in that campaign. And if we ever wanted to move a prospect out of another campaign into the new one that we're creating, we have to tell the system to do that by move prospects. So toggling move prospects again, if it finds that a prospect exists in an old campaign, it will move them from that old campaign to this new one that you're creating here. The last little bit here that I skipped over a little bit was the campaign settings. So we haven't covered it yet, but you'll notice inside of our settings tab, we are going to be adjusting limits for how many connection requests per day we want to send out. So we can let the system just kind of split that up evenly accordingly to how many campaigns we have running, or we can turn on our campaign settings and we can decide exactly how many connection requests per day we want to send for this specific campaign. Once we've named our campaign, we've uploaded our search URL or our target audience, decided if we wanted to toggle any of these switches or adjust the campaign settings, we're going to go ahead and start building the campaign by adding steps. So you'll see there's a ton of different steps that we can add within a campaign, sending connection requests, sending our follow-up messages. If you have in-mail credits, you can send in-mails, and we can also perform actions to have soft touch points of engagement with prospects, such as viewing their profile, following their profile, engaging with their content, or even endorsing their skills on LinkedIn. We also have the option so if you ever create a LinkedIn event on LinkedIn, you have the option to grab your LinkedIn URL for that event, and then you can instantly start firing event invites off to to prospects on LinkedIn, whether they're new prospects you're connecting with or your current network. We can instantly start firing those invites off within the campaign as well. With our advanced feature or our advanced accounts, we do have the option to send emails as I mentioned before. And then we also have a database where you can enrich these profiles and try to find other points of contact, such as phone number and email. Lastly, we do have integrations that allow you to integrate with different CRMs, or you can even use Zapier to zap information over. Either route we go with the integration portion, we can add the steps manually in the campaign to push data to a CRM, or even send a webhook to zap that information wherever you need it to go.
Yeah, so a couple of things I want to touch on right on the perform action, right? That one's huge because every one of us that's been on LinkedIn at any time, you see those automated messages that come through and they're automated, right? So side note, the copy is important. How you write the message is important so it doesn't look like it. But larger than this, being able to follow a profile like the last 3 posts or endorse the last, their top 5 skills, right? That's huge because then that shows that you're a real person actively engaging with your prospect, right? And so you're staying front of mind. Even if they say, no, not at this time, we're not interested, you can go back a couple of weeks later and have it set up to where it endorses their top 5 skills, and it kind of keeps you present in that prospect's mind, which is massive, right? It makes you look like a real person and you are engaged and caring about what your prospects are doing.
Absolutely. So for a traditional campaign, I'm just going to show you an example here. Let's say we are building a brand new list. We're reaching out to new prospects on LinkedIn. We're going to initially start with sending a connection request. So it's always going to give you a preview of exactly what that connection message is going to look like. You have the option to send an empty invitation, as you can see here, or we can always include text as well. So whenever you're including text in any message, whether it's a connection message or a follow-up message, we have these different placeholders that you can use to create a more tailored experience when you're reaching out to these prospects. All of these tags or placeholders will be pulled directly from the prospect's profile. So I can say my first name, would love to connect. In addition to this, we do have some best practices. So if you ever get stumped, curious, need some ideas, feel free to come in here and filter through. We have a ton of different examples for you to pick from. You can also have your own templates that you can have created. We will actually create those in the template tab, which we'll get to in just a few. But once you have those created in the template tab, you will upload them into your messaging directly right here by adding template. There is a video portion. I'm going to save this for a follow-up step because it's not super ideal to have in a connection request message. So I will touch on this in just a second. But then lastly here, once you add that message to your connection request, we can again preview what that message is going to look like attached to your connection request. The last step for any time you're adding these steps in here is going to be setting time delays for each of these steps to kind of better mimic that human behavior. So we're not just spamming them left and right. Initially, though, the first step I'm going to leave with no time delay. That way it instantly fires off a connection request. All of our follow-up steps, though, we will have time delays. That way the system doesn't try to run them all at once. Plus, again, we want to mimic that human behavior.
Yeah, and just a little, I would say, kind of pro tip here is I set mine after the connection request, then I set every cadence thereafter for every 4 days instead of like every single day, right? Because statistics show that 16% of people on LinkedIn log in every day. The other users log in once a week, right? And so what you don't want to see is you log into LinkedIn and all of a sudden you've got 3 messages from Dante and you're like, whoa, this guy's blowing me up, right? But if I log in once a week, I'll see one of them, the week that I log in, respond back to it. 4 days later, there'll be another one. So it'll actually flow like a normal communication and I won't look like I'm blowing up my people.
Yep. Something I recommend just implementing out as a standard practice after we send a connection request is performing an action. And that action we're going to perform is actually viewing the profile page. The reason for this is after we connect with a prospect, our system will go in, it'll view their profile, and it's going to collect any public data for you. So location, occupation, the company they work for, phone number and email if it's available, all the good details you need on a prospect. It is going to go and scrape that information off of their profile after the connection request is accepted. So I just recommend creating it as a standard practice for your very first follow-up step after they connect with you is just to go view their profile page. Another really cool thing about this as well is if they have Premium or Sales Navigator, they are notified every single time someone views their profile page. So again, gives it some of that more human-like characteristics.
Yeah. So that's awesome. It's another touch point, right? It takes 8 to 10 touches on any prospect to close them. And so that's just another touch that you get to have. The other thing is, since it does enrich the data, and if it's available for an email or phone number, things like that, it goes back into that hyper-focused mentality, but it also gives you additional data, right? So now you're not paying for a data tool. You know, there's lots of tools that you can buy out there that'll give people's emails and phone numbers. Maybe you go to Fiverr, et cetera. So you're displacing another cost, right? So that's the other thing that I look at is, what's the overall value add? Not only is this a sales tool, but it also is a data tool for you to become smarter longer in the game.
Absolutely. After we view the profile, typically we're going to start our follow-up process, which is going to probably fall into sending messages. Again, we have those placeholders you can use. We have, again, more best practices. If you need some ideas or get stumped, you can have your own templates ready to go. You can still preview what that message is going to look like. And then the portion that I skipped over previously is the video portion. So this is one of my favorite features of the platform. Super cool here. So I'll show you what this looks like. So first off, on the back end, it's going to ask you for the scenario name. This is just labeling it to remind yourself what the video outreach is for. It's going to create, so this video that gets sent out to the prospects, it is going to appear as a link in the inbox. It's going to create a thumbnail of the video. When they click on the link, it will take them to an external landing page. On that landing page, we can have a title for our video as well as a subtitle. We can still use these placeholders to create that more tailored and personalized feeling for these videos that are going outbound. And then if I scroll down here, you'll notice it's going to have a bubble of my face in the bottom left-hand corner, and then it's going to pull in this LinkedIn profile behind me. So this is just an example LinkedIn profile. This is going to be at scale. So I would record this video. I could say, hey, how's it going? Was checking out your profile here. This will actually track, by the way, your scroll. So if I scroll down here in the video, it's going to track that and it's going to record it. So I could scroll down and say, hey, I was checking out your experience level. Notice you're the CEO of your company. I help CEOs do X, Y, and Z. Would love to connect with you sometime. You stop your recording. Now you'll shoot that video once. And then at scale, every single time it sends this video out, the system will go in and pre-record this video over the top of the prospect's LinkedIn profile. So when the prospect opens their inbox and they go to view this message from you and they see the link, they're going to see the thumbnail attached to that message with their profile behind you. And this is at scale again. So you shoot it once and then the system will go in and pull the LinkedIn profile in behind you for you every single time. The last thing you can do here is create your own call to action, because again, this is going to an external landing page. So as I mentioned, I asked them to book a call with me or I wanted to chat sometime. You can always navigate them to any external booking link or any external URL in general with your own custom call to action at the bottom of the video.
Yeah, so this is just another great tool, right? It makes you look like you're very interested in your prospect. I use it all the time. Hey, just stopping by. I liked a couple of your posts recently. You've been sharing some really great content, right? Because now I've had the system itself like a couple of their things, right? So it's a follow-up of that. You've got some really interesting experience, right? And you scroll down to that. And to reiterate what Jalen's saying, in the bottom left-hand corner is going to be the recording that you do. In the background is going to be each individual prospect's LinkedIn profile. So, it really is a super powerful tool to use when you're trying to get people's attention, right? We're trying to break through the noise. We're trying to close sales.
Absolutely. Once you've recorded your video, though, you've got all your call to actions in place, your titles are in place, you simply save that video. Once you save the video, it will be a drag and drop option from the add video portion. You can just easily pull it straight into your follow-up message here. Again, as I mentioned, when adding steps, we have our full follow-up process. So you may have multiple send messages, but we can also perform actions just to have those other soft touch points of engagement outside of just hitting the inbox. So let's say I want to like some of their content. And then I could even follow up afterwards after I've liked some of their content and say, hey, I was out some of your right. So we know that within our campaign, we are going to their profile. We're liking their last 3 posts. So now I can reference that in my next follow-up message whenever I'm reaching out to the prospect. Keep in mind, as I mentioned, once you get all your steps in place, we need time delays for every single one of these. So make sure you're coming in and adding those time delays to better mimic some of that human behavior. Once you've added all your steps though, and you're ready to run your campaign, you can either go ahead and run it, have it live to go, or you can just save it to come back and edit for later. Once you've created your campaign, they're going to appear in a list view here. We'll have a couple different categories just to kind of mark down how the campaign's performing or where it's at. So we'll have a new category. This is going to be for prospects that get queued up into a campaign. So they haven't actually received a connection request. They're just queued up and enrolled into the campaign. Once they've actually received the connection request on LinkedIn, or if it's an email campaign, once they've received that first email, they will move over to the contacted stage. Once they accept your connection request on LinkedIn, they'll move over to the connected stage. And if they reply to any of your emails or they reply to any of your LinkedIn follow-up messages, they will move over to the replied section. You'll also notice in just a few, when we get to the inbox portion, we can mark individuals as leads or as customers if you would like to track that per campaign. And then we can also see pending connection requests or unreachable connection requests. Typically, unreachable means they were too far outside of your network. We couldn't connect with them. Pending ones is typically is a step that drops into the queue, and it's just waiting for time within the account limits to actually send that connection request. Because you will notice that we have account limits on a daily basis for how many points of activity we can conduct, aka how many connection requests per day we can send, how many follow-up messages per day we can send. If it finds that it hits that max number and it can't perform an action for the day, it will drop it into the pending category until it has enough availability to actually complete that task. And we will also track the stats for your campaign, so your acceptance rate, your reply rate, and then as I mentioned, if you have any links inside of your messaging, we are tracking that click rate, so you can also see the percentages for your click rates. And very easily, if you ever wanted to view these prospects that are in these categories, for example, I want to see these 112 people that have replied to me, you can very easily click on it. It will take you into our next section that we're going to cover, which is the prospect tab, and we'll automatically filter all of those prospects out for you. That way you can see them in a list view.
Is massive stuff, right? So those statistics, right, is good for a couple of things, right? Because we know as entrepreneurs and sales leaders that it's all about the build, measure, learn, right? And so you can start a campaign, you can see how it's, performing. So that means maybe you can change your messaging. Jalen kind of touched on earlier that you could do A/B testing, right? So you can have it set where I want A messages and B messages, so you can see which one is performing better, and then go with that as your primary messaging. Goes back into that build, measure, learn. And then finally, also that link click, right? Where you can create custom paths to see who's clicking on your content. But not only that, if you see, like, for example, for me, it's like, hey, we do cybersecurity. We also do, voice over IP phone sales, and I can see what they're clicking on and then take them on a journey with what they were interested in. Right. And so this is how we hyper focus and we hyper target what our prospects are actually looking for and get closer to that sale.
Yep, absolutely. The other campaign I wanted to show you, which will kind of touch on a little bit of what Dante's talking about here, is sending these prospects down different paths, is going to be the smart campaign. So you'll notice the top half of a smart campaign is exactly like a simple campaign, right? We'll name it, we'll upload our lead list. We have the different toggles to turn on if we'd like to. Where it gets really different is that we're not adding steps anymore. We're going to open a sequence builder. And a sequence builder is going to look a lot like a workflow. So if you've ever worked with workflows in the past, this may look a little similar to you. So it's going to start with the lead source. Again, that's your the lead source that you're uploading for the prospects that you're reaching out to. So whether that's a sales nav list, you're hitting somebody's content, you're uploading a Boolean search from LinkedIn, that's going to be your lead source. And then you'll notice we have actions on the right-hand side. All of these actions are the same steps that you can add within a simple campaign, right? So I can send a connection request initially. Now, where it gets totally different for smart campaigns is going to be the conditions. So these are if-then variables that, again, allow us to send our prospects down different paths, kind of according to what they are doing inside of your campaign. So for example, let's say I drop in my if connected bucket. So I'm going to start with my prospect. I'm going to send them a connection request. And now after I send them a connection request, I'm going to drop them into this if connected bucket for 3 days. So what the system is doing is once I send the connection request, it's going to wait 3 days after that. At the end of that 3 days, it's going to see, did the prospect connect with me or has the prospect not connected with me? If they connected, they'll go down my green path here. So I could say, let's go ahead and perform an action of viewing their profile and sending them a follow-up message. If they don't get connected with me, I'm going to jump over to the left-hand side here. Sorry, is that loud, Dante?
No, no, you're good.
Okay. We're doing construction outside my building.
Okay.
So the if connected bucket here, I'm going to add a second one. I'm going to say, let's add another 3 days here. So the way this is going to work, they'll exist in here for 3 days. Again, if they did connect with me, we'll send them down the green path of our follow-up process. If not, I'm going to drop them into another if connected bucket. So I'm going to now give them another 3 days to get connected with me. If not, right, we're probably just going to keep continuing on this process. So a lot of people ask me, why can't I just jump in here and set this for 15 days and give them plenty of time to connect and not have to keep duplicating these steps over and over? Unfortunately, the way the system does work is it's going to send that connection request. It's going to drop them into this bucket. If I set the time delay here for 13 days and the prospect connects with me on day number 1, they're still going to exist in this bucket for the entire 13 days, which is going to really extend out our follow-up process, which we don't want to do. We want to kind of respond to these prospects as soon as possible when they're active and engaging with us. So with that being said, we want to have multiple buckets where they're just sitting in there for 2 to 3 days at a time. That way your follow-up process doesn't get extended out too much. Once you've built out this very first green path, though, typically from there, it's just duplicating that. So you'll notice, like, I'm probably going to perform an action again. I'm going to send a follow-up message over here. Same for this one. I'll probably perform an action, send a follow-up message. It's kind of just duplicating the same thing over and over again. Mm-hmm. For the conditions section as well, if I'm sending a message, and again, I have a link inside of my message, I could say, if my message link is clicked, I want to maybe follow up saying, hey, noticed you were able to check out my last message, or noticed you're able to click on the link to my last message. I could send a different message in correspondence to that compared to if they didn't click on it. Hey, notice you haven't had a chance to click on the link in my last message. Just wanted to push us back to the top of your inbox. A few other conditions here just to outline them. We can see if we're collecting their personal email. The personal email is AKA the email we're collecting from their LinkedIn profile. So I can say, hey, if I collected a LinkedIn profile email, if I clicked that email, I want to go ahead and let's say send them an email. If I didn't collect that email, let's say, all right, I didn't collect an email from them. I want to go ahead and enrich their contact inside of the database that we have available. And if I was able to pull that enriched email, now let's go ahead and fire an email there. So as you can see, these campaigns can get pretty intense after a while, especially if you keep building on additional steps. And I want to actually show you, so now that you've seen an example on how I build it out, I want to actually show you one that I've had completely built out. So as you can see, they can get somewhat intense sometimes, but you'll notice that it's really just duplicating the same thing over and over. So right, I start with my lead source, I send a connection request, I have my first if connected bucket with my full follow-up response. So perform an action, if I collected an email, right, send a message, send an email, so on and so forth. But this entire right side here is literally a duplicate of what's going on right here in the middle, as well as a duplicate of exactly what's going on the far left-hand side. So once you build out that first workflow, it's really just a matter of duplicating all the other steps to keep them kind of flowing through the entire workflow here.
Yeah, this is impressive. And so what I'll also add, folks, is like you can copy paste these sequences. So you don't have to recreate this for every single campaign that you have. You can set it up where you're like, I loved how that worked and I want to do it in a different industry, right? Like I go after different verticals. I work with construction and I also work with automotive. So I start one campaign that's construction oriented and then I copy paste that and do automotive and change the messaging just slightly to reach my automotive customers.
Yep, just to touch on what Dante just was mentioning, for any of these campaigns on the far right-hand side, these three little dots, we can easily duplicate them. So it'll create an exact replica of what you've already created. Okay, it's gonna, create an exact duplicate of all the messaging you created. The entire workflow is gonna look exactly the same. All of your time delays will be exactly the same. All you will literally have to do is rename the campaign and upload your new search URL or your new lead list, and then you can fire up that new campaign. You can also very easily from these right three dots, since we're here, I can check prospects, aka I can pull up and filter down all the prospects enrolled into this campaign. I can open chat, aka pull up the inbox for all the inbox conversations for this specific campaign. I can export all the data that we've collected for this specific campaign. And then if you're running a sales nav search, if you'll understand this if you use sales nav, but anytime you have a saved search, it will automatically upload new leads into your saved search. So you have the ability to rerun searches, aka rerun your sales nav search to pull in those additional leads if they apply. Another really cool thing when it comes to duplicating, if you're working in a small team, if you have a sales team or multiple reps working on the platform at the same time, if one rep has a campaign that's running very well and it's performing great and he wants to share it to other reps within the company, you can easily duplicate all of these campaigns to another account as long as you guys exist in the same workspace. But then you can duplicate your entire campaign to another account, and then they can have that same exact template to run off of.
Right. So that's great. You've got one killer rock star salesperson. They're doing awesome. You duplicate that and give it to your other salespeople, which is great. Like, so think about if you had 7 snipers on your team, right? How many prospects could you take down with that amount of firepower? It would, exponentially increase what you're doing, and the ROI is going to be off the chart, which towards the end of this, I'll show you an ROI calculator. And I'll share my screen towards the end, Jalen, and show people how much they can expect to see in earnings when they use the Scuddlr.
Awesome. Alrighty, anything Dante, anything else you wanted to, that may be top of mind for you, that you wanted to cover on the campaign tab before we jump forward here?
No, that's it. That's great. You're doing amazing. Thank you.
Beautiful. Alrighty, so I'm going to jump forward to the prospect tab. As I mentioned, once we view a prospect's profile after we connect with them, we're going to scrape that public data that's available to us. So you'll notice on the far right-hand side, it's labeled under personal emails as well as phone number. So you'll notice that about 80–90% of the time, we are always collecting an email from their profile. The one that's a little bit trickier to come by is a phone number, and that's just because it is not required to have a phone number on your LinkedIn profile to create a LinkedIn account, whereas an email, it is required. So you'll notice almost all the time you get the emails, the phone numbers are a little bit harder to come by, but all that data is stored directly inside of here. Again, everything you need to know about a prospect, the company they work for, where they're at within your campaign, their information. I can click right here, pull this up. I can see all the conversation that I've had with them so far. I can see what I like to call as a virtual business card. So again, the company they work for, where they're located, their information, whether that be phone number and email, as well as their work experience, literally everything you need to know about these prospects. We are collecting that data for you, and it's storing it right here inside of the prospect tab. So a few things with this data. We can export it all into a CSV file. So if you wanted to just export it into a CSV, upload it into your CRM, upload it into an active campaign, a MailChimp, whatever the case may be, you can export all this data out into a CSV. We also have a native integration with HubSpot and Pipedrive. If you use either one of those as a CRM, then we can just push it directly to your CRM with that integration. And then the other thing that I'll cover in here is with our advanced package, the feature that includes the enrich database. You can come in and hand select these different prospects. For example, let's say Brendan here. I want to enrich his account, which I'm out of enrichment credits out right now. But if I had enrichment credits, because you get a set amount per month, I would click enrich. It's going to look through our database. It's going to try to find another point of contact. If it finds that other point of contact similar to as it has down here in the past, it's going to give you that information. If it does not, as you can see, as I've done here before, it will give you that enrichment credit right back, and then you can try to use that on another prospect.
Yeah, and like I said earlier, it's another way to offset costs, right? So instead of buying a data tool, maybe using Fiverr, maybe using another one like Zoom Info or whatever, you don't have to necessarily have that expense because you can pull that enriched data. The other part is it's another touch point, right? As I mentioned, only about almost 17% of people check LinkedIn daily. So prospects might miss you, but they usually don't miss their email, right? And so you can even reference, hey, I've been trying to contact you on LinkedIn, wanted to see if I can catch you here, right? And reference the talking points and start the cadence through that as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, I always put a lot of emphasis on data. I think it's often overlooked, to be honest, and not super capitalized on. But in the realm of world that we live in these days, I mean, data is gold. So
Mhm.
Capitalize on the data, whether you're just using the emails and running email campaigns through the platform here, or if you're uploading them into your CRM and hitting them in other, external sources for marketing. Whatever the case may be, definitely capitalize on the data.
Yep.
Alrighty. I'm going to jump forward now to the inbox portion. So any conversation created by Scuddlr here is going to be stored and housed right here inside of the inbox for you to manage. So if you click on a conversation, it's going to pull it up directly in front of you. I know I gave you a little bit of a view of this already, but on the right-hand side, you'll have a virtual business card of the prospect. So while you're having a conversation, everything you need to know about them will be right here on the right-hand side for you. A few different things I want to cover inside of here. So as I mentioned, we're going to pull in all those LinkedIn conversations, but as well as email correspondences. So if you're running email marketing from the platform as well, you can also view all of those emails directly from the inbox portion as well. On the right-hand side, I mentioned earlier that we can mark individuals as leads or as customers. So you'll see that I can mark them as a lead. Once you mark them as a lead, you also have the option to mark them as a customer if you'd like to track that per campaign. You can also create your own custom labels to filter down by. So if, let's say, you have prospects that you need to make sure you follow up with, you can apply those filters to the inbox conversations. And then you can always filter down by your own custom labels to help you keep things organized. And again, you can create your own custom one. So mine says need to follow up because I created it, but you can literally create whatever label you need to help you keep this inbox kind of organized and filtered down accordingly. One of the biggest things I want to put emphasis on here is, as we all know, we're running automated follow-up messages. Once a prospect replies, or even if you manually send a response, that is what's going to terminate or turn off all of the automations. So for example, here, the prospect replied to one of my automated messages. And at this point, all automations have been turned off for this individual specifically. So we have a couple different options here. We either one, jump in and manually take over the conversation. We can also go ahead and have a scheduled send message. So I can type a message out and I can schedule to send in the future on my behalf if I would like to. I can have some pre-scripted saved replies ready to go with this left-facing arrow if I have some, a calendar link I want to just have ready to go. But most of the time, what I recommend, if it's not a super enticing, response where you really want to manually take over that conversation at that point, over on the right-hand side, you can scroll down and you have the option to resume campaign, aka resume the automations. So let's say I sent him this message here and he said, thanks for the connection, or I appreciate the connection as well. Most of the time, I'm probably just going to resume the campaign for that prospect because it's not a conversation that I want to manually take over just quite yet. So we do have the option to resume campaign, aka resume the automations. And then just to touch on that again, we have a couple filters here, but this replied filter is going to be your absolute best friend because once a prospect replies, there's going to be some kind of manual task involved, whether that's manually replying or even manually resuming the campaign. Either way, we have to jump in here and manually do one of the two. A couple other things that I will show you. You'll notice that very similar to LinkedIn, we can mark these conversations as unread. If you ever feel like there's a message missing that didn't get transcribed from LinkedIn, you can always refresh the dialogue. Our system will go in and check and make sure that it has pulled over all of the conversations from LinkedIn. We can also star conversations as well as archive conversations. All 4 of these will reflect in LinkedIn as you're making these changes. So if you mark a conversation unread inside of the platform here, it will also mark it unread inside of LinkedIn. Same with if you star a conversation inside of the platform here, it will also star the conversation for you inside of LinkedIn. Something that is on the horizon, and I'm just going to go ahead and mention this because honestly, it should be live next week. We are introducing AI as a piece of a new feature for messaging.
Yeah.
AI is going to literally, you'll jump inside of the messaging section here. You could say, please respond to the message above. The AI will go in, it will actually read the message and it will transcribe a response for you. And then you can also go in and kind of give your feedback to the AI, like make it more aggressive. I need it to be shortened, handle this objection, whatever the case may be. You can kind of communicate with the AI to help you respond to these messages as well. So that is something that is very soon on the horizon. So I'll go ahead and mention that as well. You can't see the feature yet because it's in staging, but will be live very soon.
Super powerful stuff, folks. I mean, anyone that's used any form of AI so far knows exactly what it can do. I mean, it's saved my hide more times than I can count. You know,
Yeah.
I don't always have the best words or the best rebuttal, you know, and or nor do I have the time to individually, you know, respond to each message that might not be as impactful, that I want to take the time to actually custom curate something, but I still want it to have a personal touch. So this is really huge stuff that's coming up here shortly.
Yep. Yep, super excited for it. I've been able to play with it a little bit, and it's really, really cool. So super excited for that. That's why I wanted to go ahead and mention it, because it's right around the horizon, and we can expect it very soon. Alrighty, jumping forward to reports tab here. This is really just going to give you an analytical breakdown for how your campaigns are performing. It's literally going to track every point of activity that the system's conducting. So whether connection requests being sent, follow-up messages being sent, emails being sent, how many profiles you're viewing, how many profiles you're following, how many people are replying to you, how many people are accepting. Literally every point of analytic that we want to track for how the campaigns are performing is going to be reported and displayed right here inside of the reports tab. So we have all of the graphs in the top half, but if I scroll down as well, we have all these numbers across the board. I haven't ran any campaigns in a while, so you're going to see a bunch of zeros here. But then we can also filter down all this data by specific date ranges. So if you wanted to see how your campaigns performed this week compared to last week, or this month compared to last month, you can always see all that data and reports here. In addition to that, outside of just viewing it here, you can also export all this data directly to a CSV file as well.
Which is huge. You know, I think as business owners and sales leaders, having that data is critical. You can see when messages are better responded to based on the time of day, the day of the week, was it in-mail, was it just connection email, stuff like that, right? And so you can really hyper focus the things that are working and disregard the things that aren't.
Yep, absolutely. Alrighty, so reports tab's pretty straightforward, so we'll jump forward here. The settings tab, there's some pretty juicy stuff in here I really want to make sure that we touch on and cover. But first off here, account settings. This is really just going to outline a few things with your LinkedIn profile, as well as just your account within the platform here. So it's going to have your LinkedIn profile attached here. You can go directly into your LinkedIn account if you'd like to. It's also going to see and recognize what kind of subscription you pay for on LinkedIn, whether that's a premium account, a basic account, or Sales Navigator. It's going to be recognizing that. It's also just going to let you know what your social selling index score is on LinkedIn, your SSI score. So LinkedIn actually has an entire dashboard if you want to see a full breakdown of what that SSI score is. But just in short form context here, we'll show you what your total score is out of 100 points. And then the last thing I really want to put some emphasis on here, you'll notice that there is a bit of a time delay for our inbox when it's syncing those messages. So it'll make more sense in just a second, but during your working hours, aka during the time frame that your campaigns are actively running, the inbox is going to sync every single 20 minutes. Now, outside of the working hours, aka outside of the time frame that your campaigns are actively running, it will sync around every 2 hours. The reason for this is we don't want our system to go in and read a message immediately, transcribe it, and then mark it unread immediately as well. There is AI that monitors the accounts on LinkedIn that doesn't really like those types of actions where it seems like a bot almost immediately doing these things. So we have to have some kind of time delay in place to better mimic that human behavior. So you will see a bit of a time delay in the inbox as far as syncing messages over. The account limits, this is where it gets a little bit more juicy. So you'll notice that we have account limits in place for literally every point of activity that we're conducting on LinkedIn. And this is just to keep your account safe. At the end of the day, LinkedIn doesn't like anybody on their platform spamming and really just pushing the ball to the wall to get outreach flowing out there. So we want to keep every account in a safe zone or in a safe position. And we do that by monitoring literally every point of activity that we're conducting inside of LinkedIn. So you'll notice that we're going to keep track of how many profiles we're viewing per day. We're going to keep track of how many connection requests we're sending per day, how many follow-up messages per day we're sending. If we're getting into in-mails, we're going to track how many in-mails, even down to how many pages we're searching through to find prospects to enroll into our campaigns. We're even going to monitor how many pages per day we're searching as well. As I've showed you as well, we can send event invites. We'll monitor how many invites we're sending. And then if you get into the email marketing portion, of course, we're going to monitor how many emails we're sending on a daily basis as well.
Yeah, and so this is all set up to protect your account, because the last thing you want to do is go against LinkedIn's policies and get your account shut down, right? I've spent years curating my network. I think I have over 8,000, 9,000, people. It would suck to lose that overnight. right? And have to start fresh and all that stuff. So it's just like a traffic light. Green is good, yellow, slow down, red, you're in the danger zone.
Yeah.
Right? Stop. So very user intuitive. My advice, stay in the green. If you want to push the envelope, go yellow, but don't do the red personally.
Yeah, just to touch on what Dante's saying there, I do recommend keeping everything in the green zone. I never recommend touching a red zone. If you do touch a yellow zone, I just recommend that only one at a time is in a yellow zone. Like one of your factors here at a time is in a yellow zone. For example, all of these are green, my connection requests are yellow. I should be safe here. But if you really want it to be safe, dropping this down, everything to green, that's where we're really, really safe. But I just recommend if you do touch the yellow zone, just only one limit at a time is in that yellow zone.
Yeah. And I'd say, honestly, like even in the green zone, we as sales leaders and entrepreneurs, we really want to get, things rolling fast, right? We want more prospects. We want more conversations. We want more at bats. The way that the tool's set up and works, right? And the way that you hyper focus on the target audience, like you're going to have more than enough conversations when it's in the green zone. Like I said, I have to turn it off periodically because I have too many conversations going. It just is, it's a good problem to have.
Yep, absolutely. And to touch on that a little bit, because I know a lot of people are eager to get in here and, just jump in full steam ahead. I always do recommend kind of warming up your activity before you kind of jump in full steam ahead. The good thing is we have a feature that will warm it up for you, so you don't have to come in every couple of days and scale up your account limits here. You can simply say, hey, I want to start with 10 connection requests per day. I want to get to that 25 per day range. Let's go ahead and increase by 2 connection requests every single day. Click confirm. You'll notice it's going to apply to all my account limits, and now it's going to start with 10. And it's going to increase by 2 every single day until it reaches that 25 that I aim for. So allows you to warm up your account without having to manually adjust every single couple of days. And then really it comes down to just account safety again. We want to kind of warm up that activity before we just jump in full steam ahead. The next tab in the settings tab that I'll cover is going to be account location. So first off, you'll notice that the top half here is just going to be deciding what time zone we're running all of this outreach out of. So just recognize that if you're in Eastern, make sure this is set for Eastern time. If you're on, the West Coast, make sure it's set for the Pacific time, so on and so forth. We want this to reflect accordingly to your specific time zone because we're going to set working hours, or AKA system operating hours, for when these campaigns are actively running. So if you accidentally set this for like Netherlands and you're running off Netherlands time zone, you're going to be running from 9 to 5, yes, but you're going to be running 9 to 5 in Netherlands time rather than US time. So make sure your time zone is accurate, and then you're going to set your working hours for when your campaigns are running. I traditionally recommend just setting this for appropriate working hours, so like a 9 to 5 for when we're going to be flowing this outreach.
And that's once again for better, contact, and also to save your account, to make sure that you don't get flagged.
Absolutely. The next tab here is the blacklist tab. So if you're, through your outbound process of your outreach, you'll notice that, it's kind of hard to eliminate people from your, like when you're trying to build your lead list, it's a little hard sometimes to eliminate people from your lead list. So to avoid hitting like current clients or close competitors, or really just people in general that you don't want to reach out to on LinkedIn, we can upload their profile into the blacklist here, or we can upload an entire company page from LinkedIn into the blacklist here. Uploading either one of those into the blacklist will block that specific profile from any outreach from your account, as well as if you upload a company page URL, it will block anyone that lists that works for that company as well from any outreach. So this is just kind of a safety net to help you from reaching out to people that you don't want to be reaching out to. The last thing here in the settings tab is, again, a little bit on the account safety side of things. Similar to like Instagram, if you follow 80,000 people but only have 200 followers, you look like a very spammy or bot account. So on LinkedIn, if you only have 500 connections but you have 1,000 pending connections, huge red flags to the AI. So just to really keep your account cleaned up and in that safe zone, we are going to set a threshold for how many max pending connections we want to have on your account. Toggle the switch on, our system will go in and start removing the oldest pending invitations first once we reach that threshold that we set it for. I typically encourage keeping this around 1/3 of the size of your network. So if, let's say, for example, I had 1,500 connections, I'd keep this at 500 pending connections.
Yeah, really smart advice there.
Beautiful. Anything else in the settings tab you wanted to cover, Dante?
No, I think that's good. Let's go to the next, the pipelines one.
Beautiful. So the pipelines tab, two different options here. One, we have a two-way sync with HubSpot. So if you integrate with HubSpot as your CRM, I can pull your HubSpot pipelines directly into the platform here. So as you start bringing these new prospects in, you can instantly upload these prospects directly into your HubSpot pipelines and add them to your deal flow. Outside of that, if you don't have HubSpot, we do have a very, very basic CRM that you can use inside of the platform here, which is what I'm in currently. It allows you to create your own different stages for your deal flow. Once you create your stages, you can very easily create new deals, add the prospects directly from your prospect tab. You can choose where they're at with, or which pipeline they're in, where they're at within your pipeline, even the deal amount and the probability of that deal closing. You can create that and just kind of track your deal flow accordingly and move them across your stages in your pipeline. So again, very, very basic CRM. It's really just for tracking your deal flow.
So two things, right? Being able to connect to your existing HubSpot if you're using that, fantastic, right? You know, that's going to save you a bunch of time and be able to toggle back and forth and have the same data in the same, you know, in different places, right? And be able to watch it. The other part is I talk about offsetting costs. So once again, not only are you getting a prospecting tool, but you're also getting a data tool, and now you're also getting a CRM for it. So as you're starting out your business and you're kind of bootstrapped and you have a paper thin budget, this is a great way to keep things on track, right? And to make sure that, you know, you're moving the deals accordingly, so you don't lose track of what's going on and forget about your prospects. And next thing you know, you lose a deal because you haven't followed up on the email, right? And that's the last thing you want to do. So this is really, really critical.
Absolutely. Alrighty. Next tab here is the template tab. So I showed you this a little bit when we were creating a campaign, right? This is where you're going to create your templates for any of your messaging, whether that be a connection message or a follow-up message, or even an email message, as well as an in-mail message. So this is where you'll create those templates. You'll create them here, but when you actually start building the campaign, that's where you'll actually upload them into your campaign. Just make sure that you're creating them here. You'll notice we still have placeholders, best practices. You can preview what it looks like. You can include text, not include text. So all of these templates will be created right here, and they'll also be stored right here. In addition to that, inside of the template tab, as I showed you, we do have the video portion inside of the follow-up messages. So you can go directly inside of your template tab, filter down by your videos, and you can also see any pre-recorded videos that you've created in the past if you'd like to. Alrighty, so here is our integrations tab. So you'll notice for the advanced portion, when we get into email marketing, we can directly integrate with Gmail or Outlook for any of our email correspondences that we want to run outreach through. It will run off Gmail or Outlook servers. This does not run off our servers by any means. In addition to that, we have the Opua CRM that you connect to. That is the very basic one I just showed you inside of the pipeline tab. And then outside of that, we have Pipeline and or Pipedrive and HubSpot as our native integrations. Anything else outside of Pipedrive and HubSpot, we will have to either use a webhook or connect with via Zapier. The last tab I'll show you, just to touch on it a little bit, is there is a billing tab. This billing tab is going to really show you just mainly how many credits you have left if you're on an advanced account, because you will get a set amount of credits per month. So you can kind of keep a pulse on how many credits you have, how many you've used, and how many you have left. You will have the option to buy more credits if you'd like to. Transparently though, I just recommend trying to wait if you can until the next month until you can get those next batch of credits. And yeah, that's really in depth overall, inside and out, the Scuddlr tool here.
Yeah, thank you for showing us that. I really definitely appreciate that, and I want to grab control and show my screen. So when you get a chance, you know, open up that so I can show also what an ROI would look like for the folks that are using Scuddlr. So you should be able to see my screen now, opus.com/Scuddlr, SCUDDLR. You can see that, right, Jalen?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Perfect. So this is where you can purchase, you know, this is where you can purchase it. But down here at the bottom is the ROI calculator, right? And so I want to show you guys exactly what's going to happen here. So Let's say you have a close rate of 30%, right? The average salesperson, the average entrepreneur has about a 20 to 30% close rate, 30% on that rock star side of things, right? And we're all rock stars. So we're going to go ahead and assume that our close rate is 30%. And then you get to put in your deal size. So what does your average deal size look like, right? A lot of the folks that I work with have high ticket sales. Could be anywhere from $2,000 to $10,000 per sale. So we'll do it on the low end, right? And say $2,000 on there. And so you can see in 1 year, your ROI, right, is almost 80 grand from just using this tool, which is massive. You know, the percentage there, have you ever seen a percentage like that on an ROI? The answer to that question is probably no, right? And so, like I said, this tool works extremely well. I've been using it for the last several months before release to make sure that it works well, and it does. As I said, I had to turn it off after a while. It was insane because I was having too many meetings, and I just couldn't catch my breath, and I couldn't, get everything done. And I wanted to make sure that I could do great customer service for my folks and make sure that everything's happening in the way that it does. So if you have questions and you are ready to rock and roll, go to that URL, oppus.com, OPPUOUS.com /Scuddlr, SCUDDLR, and you can learn more about the system, you can learn more about the business, and you can purchase it. It is month to month. We don't do contracts. We believe in the power of it, so we never want to lock you down. So go ahead and utilize that at will, right? And so you're going to find that you do love it and you keep it on, right? And that's the reason why we do the no contract methodology, right? Is we put our money where our mouth is on that. It's just plain and simple.